Getting ready for our first video menage a trois. It's the Extended Play Podcast with Ian Tank. Welcome to the Extended Play Podcast with Ian Tank. Today's episode, we are going to get some insider info about what it takes to make music. You know, Tank and I started this podcast about almost exactly a year ago now. Yeah. Which is crazy to think. Jesus. Yeah. And just being music fans who for our entire lives, we've known each other for 30 plus years, who just like talking about music. We're into a lot of the same stuff. And we also have our own, you know, obviously if you listen to the show or watch the show, we have our own sort of unique tastes as well. But we just like talking about it. Mm-hmm. And we sort of realized that we at times, you know, we reach the upper limits of our knowledge of music. That is, we know what sounds cool. We think we know what good songwriting is like, but it's a lot of guesswork. Yeah. And it's an uneducated opinion. That's right. And we were talking in the prep for the show, a lot of what we get is like a lot of the behind the scenes stuff we're just getting from like rock docs. So that's not real helpful when it really get into the nitty gritty. And that's what we want to do. We want to understand more. And to that end, we have a special guest today. Our guest B is I'm going to let you do the introduction because there's a whole list of, your CV is pretty packed, which is exactly why we wanted to have you on the show because we got a lot of questions for you.
I've had a lot of indecision over the years. This is true. Yeah. Actually, you know, it's funny. I just thought about it the other day. This year will be half of my life being like full-fledged, like professionally making a living. Incredible. Doing something in art. Yeah. That's weird. I started at 16. So yeah, musician at first, I like all of us, just started with crappy rock bands into slightly less crappy rock band, getting a deal, getting signed to Interscope when I was 16 and then coming out to LA and I've seen CDs to Spotify to, whatever this AI thing is going to be coming next. Yeah, sure. To what NFTs somewhere in the middle of that. Right. Musician and basically just, wore a bunch of hats, kind of like you said, manager, producer, writer, was in a band, occasional vocalist. And from all of that, it was always with a more visual tilt to me. Okay. I was always really drawn to the visual side of things. So I've ended up just like everyone in LA, a lowly director, just trying to emulate my heroes out here. Okay. But man. Okay. That's the synopsis of the CV. Excellent.
Got it. So starting at the beginning, so what did you play in the band? What was your role in the band? Your first band?
So my first band, and it was funny, thinking about this, and I was like, man, when did I first record versus playing live? Again, 18, this is 19 years ago, so I was 12 when I played my first shows. It's just so weird to say out loud. It'll be 20 years this year. I broke my leg after being into paintball and, skateboarding and everything else and just shattered my leg, football, sports, whatever. So I was sitting in a chair for literally 8 weeks. I had a knee above my cast. So my dad's like, the kid's going to go crazy. Let's get him a guitar. And I can say this will sound less horrible with context, but when I started looking back, I had the curse of talent. And that I can give a lot more context to that, but I was right at the bat. My dad left the room and like 6 hours later, I hadn't stopped and I was playing like Back in Black by AC/DC. Okay. That day, like the day I got a guitar, so he just flipped out. Sure, he was just like, "Oh my god, like we're rerouting your life now. Like this is it." It was just the first thing that I gravitated towards. So that was that started 12. Put together my friends. Got two dudes to go play biker bars with me in the like most unsafe part of Dallas, which at the time actually was pretty shitty. Okay. Playing actual biker bars, like none of my friends could come, and then they're like, well, I guess we'll do an all ages show. I'm doing these things called pay to play. Mm-hmm. So it's literally like you have to sell a certain number of tickets to even like let the venue. I wasn't making money. I was purely like shoveling the shit to like a fundraiser. Right. And did that for a few years, and I knew I was like a madman. I would get the best guys that I could, but I was like, you're not exactly playing that fill from American Idiot exactly right. If you will notice, I didn't notice like snare sounds and stuff like that. I didn't like do production yet, but I was just like, listen, man, the fill goes like that, and we're in a garage. It's too loud. No one can really hear anything.
Right.
But I was militant. So I kind of outgrew the first group that I was with, which were my best friends, turmoil at 14 of being like, dude, sorry, I'm trying to make it big. And they're like, that doesn't mean anything. You're 14. They're just like, you don't want to hang out? I'm like, no. So I ended up, there was another local band at my school who I thought took it seriously. And I hit him up and I was just like, yo, I'll play anything. At the time I played guitar. So to finally answer your question, I played guitar in my first band, and I was like, I want to do this. I will gladly switch to whatever instrument to like do this for real.
Okay.
So I'm like 15. 15 at the time, and I was like, cool. You guys need a bass player? I'll play bass. Like they wanted their singer who played bass to just sing. So that was it. I joined that band with my best friend. He got kicked out. I ended up staying in the band, and. Don't worry, I got his back later. I can put him in a band like 8 years later. But started touring. That was a band called Disco Curtis. Please, nobody listening, Google that. Or I guess you can. It's pretty fun. My hair is exceptional. I mean, just wild. But we actually from that. I mean, I'll just keep going.
Yeah, go for it.
Stop. No, we were really big on uploading to YouTube, and this is 2008. So YouTube was 2 years old.
Sure.
So nobody knew what the hell YouTube was supposed to be, and we sure as hell didn't. But we had these things called a flip camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, like iPhones didn't have front cameras. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like this is the 3G wasn't even out yet.
Yeah.
It was literally the iPhone 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so 2007, 2008, we started doing that, and we were big on MySpace. MySpace was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
We got taught by like another local band that did pretty well and was touring about how to promote on MySpace. So we would do these things called promotion days.
Okay.
Where we would spend 10 to 11 hours a day sitting there messaging kids online. Legitimately,
Holy
I would
shit.
leave school. I skipped so much school by the time this was starting. This is pre-signing. And I would just leave school early, go home, and we would promote for like 6 hours, band practice for like 2, go back to promoting. I wasn't the best with that. I was more interested in the filming part of the blogs and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But they were militant, and that did everything along with having the content to, tell kids, hey, go look. And it was literally us like, they're still up there. I mean, they're uploaded 16 years ago or whatever, and they say like flag football. We didn't. Nobody knew what it was. There was no. Eventually, we kind of saw. We were like, well, maybe we should film ourselves in the studio or something. We were like, yeah, kind of figured it out. But that was huge because that was my education for. There were 100 bands that were as good as us. There were 100 bands that sounded whatever, but that was really where I started to look at like segmentation of how do you turn this into a career.
Absolutely.
A lot of that stuck with me. That was the real impetus for, that band was short-lived. I did like the Warped Tour. I did like a couple of tours around the country, but I was 16 to 8. I didn't even turn 18 in that band.
Okay.
Like I quit before my 18th birthday and I'd already toured like pretty much around the country. I was on Warped Tour, the last tour that I did with them, and that pretty much launched everything. I just remember thinking I was in this world where, my genre that my band was playing was the biggest genre that I barely had a chance to be a fan. So I was sort of simultaneously a fan and making it my career.
Sure.
Most people get a car and can finally go to the concerts their mom won't let them go to. I was learning to drive a van before I ever had a car, like years before I had a car.
Sure.
Right. It was really, that was like the education. Warped Tour was sort of the aha moment where I was like, this genre, I'm looking at these stages and I'm seeing 1,000 kids for the bands that I thought were the biggest in the world. We the King, this whole like Warped Tour 2000s pop punk shit, like post Taking Back Sunday, MySpace era, all time low.
Yep.
Yeah, that punky little, little Vans Warped Tour in 2010. And then I look over at another stage, and there are these metal bands that are doing 4,000 kids. I mean, just literally seas of kids that I was like, oh, something's going on here. I'm wrong. I'm completely wrong with what I think is popular.
Okay.
And I looked at it, and I was like, I can write that shit in my sleep. Pop was kind of hard to write.
Okay.
I have a lot of admiration for like the pop producers we looked at or we worked with and were around at that time.
Okay.
But the metal stuff, I was just like, oh man, it was a genre that was kind of a bleed off of a bunch of stuff I'd never heard.
Yeah.
But the way that it had simplified at the perfect time for me to listen on Warped Tour and be like, y'all have 4 times the audience, couldn't have been simpler.
What is
musically.
it? What was it
like,
musically specifically that makes it, like, if you can give us the sort of layman's version, like what?
Yeah.
As far as songcraft goes,
I wish I could.
Right.
Oh no, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just curious, like, what would make that music simpler? Because, again, we have no idea. We often, and we listened to a lot of metal growing up. We also listen to a lot of pop.
Yeah, I still do.
We have the whole broad spectrum of it. But there are some genres some genres we think sound infinitely more complex, and perhaps they're not even.
Yeah, so this is a very specific niche, right? This is like in between. Now I could give you a lot more context. This is like the runoff of like Under Oath and Thrice and who else, man? Like even like some earlier Norma Jean stuff and like this very specific. It comes out of like hardcore, right?
Yeah,
Which is like Converge and like Minor Threat and like everything in like the 90s. A little bit of grunge in there, but this is like computers are now cheap enough for kids in their bedroom to do some shit.
Okay,
and there was this. And it was kind of like Bullet for My Valentine and a few other of these bands.
Okay.
Now, look, I get into that. I knew none of this. Okay,
Gotcha. Sure,
I didn't know.
Sure.
I couldn't have told you. I just heard it point blank what it was, what it had turned into. This was years later. I started to go like, oh, that's who I'm influenced by, and I had no idea.
Okay.
But when I first heard it, just point blank, when I come from the pop punk thing, you're focusing on chords and melody. I mean, it's a pop punk's tune is not that different than Ed Sheeran's song. They're really not that far off. The tempo might be different. Big part of it's tempo, black. It's all air drum for me, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I never could play the drums, but I understood the drums. So you can feel it when you listen to house music and it's at a certain tempo versus if you listen to trap music. The only difference is really the tempo.
Yeah.
So this stuff, this pop punk stuff was, I mean, some of these songwriters now are the guys who wrote for, like, Jack Antonoff was in a pop punk band.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right,
Like, huge songwriter.
Yeah.
Andrew Goldstein literally was in a pop punk band I toured with, and he does a ton of people now. A lot of these guys. That was a lot more melodic. It was tempo-wise. It was a lot more chord-based. And without describing the strengths of that, which is a little harder to do, it's nuance. It's basically like what you had heard before up until... Still to this day, right? You still hear 5 Seconds of Summer or whatever. That's the older sound or runoff of 80s, 90s, a mix of everything. Production changes, but those chords are pretty like Green Day, right?
Sure.
The metal stuff was the reason it was so simple was I was like, all right, you take an open note, you put your song in drop. At the time, it was probably drop C sharp, which is a drop tuning. Okay. So the first three strings on your guitar will make a chord.
Okay.
All right. This is like what Linkin Park did. This is what was really big with Limp Bizkit.
I was just going to say.
This was all like...
I literally heard break stuff as you started to describe it.
So, and look, Westmoreland, a G with that. I mean, he's incredible. Yeah. It's not the same. These are not parallel.
Yeah, I've listened to his instrumental albums. They're crazy.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, Westmoreland is incredible. This is not that. This was like...
I know what you mean.
This is a lot more Guitar Center, a lot more internet, man. I mean, like literally, Limp Bizkit is popular on TikTok now. So this was 15 years ago. Right. He just did not give a fuck. It's like you guys like, I don't know. It's like some snobby little kid telling you to go TikTok dance. You're like, fuck, no, stop. You know what I mean? Like you're like, that's what we were, and we were like bastardizing a lot of shit, which made it its own thing. There's some highlights there. There's a couple tunes I can put on. It allowed for a lot of different genres, but all to say, it was open notes. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're doing a lot of digga dun dun digga dun dun digga dun digga dun digga dun dun digga dun, and all your kick is doing is matching that. I heard it. I literally was like at live, and I was just like, oh, it's just that was it.
Gotcha.
And I was like, oh, I get it. This is way easier to write than poppy whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, that was really what spurred the moment. And I just took it home. I had a band that opened up for my band for our Warped Tour kickoff, and they were kind of trying to play this music. I was like, they were horrible. I mean, they were absolutely horrible. They have documented this, so I don't feel bad saying that. Like, they were perpetually bad, and I kind of knew what it would take. I was like, you need an incredible drummer. Like, listen to how complicated the thing I just said with my mouth is. You know, like, you need somebody who can do that with all 4 of his limbs. Like, your guy can't do that. Your bass player leaves a lot to be desired. I was like, you're not that good at guitar. You should play bass. Hey, I did it in my band, and we should find the rest of the guys online. I was like, have you heard of YouTube? You know, like, this was still 2010. It's probably a little more familiar, but I was like, there's guys uploading their playing online. Let's form a little super group. Do everything I say on the promotion end, because that's how I learned, right? I'll teach you how to promote on MySpace and all that education period I had, and then I'll write you guys all the songs. I'll tell you what to wear. I had this whole I coming from that pop punk world. I loved like Panic at the Disco. Okay, and I was like, you know, they have these creepy. You know how that feels creepy when you listen to their first shit.
Absolutely,
very cabaret.
Yes.
It has the little ding 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 ding, and you're just always on the edge. You're like, you're. I was like, well, hey, that could be metal. Okay, you know, like we'll just scream and make it. And that was literally the impetus of the band. I was like, dress in top hats, but play the same shit I just watched on Warped Tour all summer, and you'll stick out because of your look. And that was, you know, I think I get my royalty checks today.
Do you still?
And that is still, yeah. No, I mean that band was literally how it just worked.
That's Crown the Empire.
I got very lucky. That's Crown the Empire. That's how I got out here, and I'm able to do what I do.
Amazing.
Still figure out what my life is at 31. Yeah.
We're all still figuring it out, clearly.
Amen to that. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So, like, one thing going back to the recording side, this is one thing that I've always wanted to know, and I've never had access to someone that could answer the question. So you're going to take a huge weight off my back in the last year or so.
Of course.
So,
got you.
in watching all the rock documentaries, so my number one all-time band is Metallica, right? And up and
oh, amazing.
Yeah. Up until the latest album, they were pretty good about, there's always a YouTube video of 10 to 12 minutes of the making of all the songs on the album. And what I'm trying to piece together is how much, when I hear a recorded final album, right? So let's just think of it as number of tracks. So for a standard rock band, let's say you're going to have at least 5 tracks. There's going to be the drummer, the lead guitar, the rhythm guitar, the bass, and the vocal. How many pieces is what I hear cut up into? Because I can see one argument where it's like, look, they keep doing takes and they keep the best take of them playing the whole song. Or I could see them micromanaging it down to like every note is overdubbed and it's thousands of pieces. What's typical for a rock song? By the time you hear it, how cut up is it?
Okay. So the fun, this is fun. This is a good, I never get to talk about shit like this.
We love shit.
Okay. This is great. Okay. So the funniest word is typical in the music industry, right?
Yeah,
That's the best part. It used to be. It used to be, for sure. When you bring up someone like Metallica, I mean, look, there was a point in time where the way that tape works, right? You've heard of things like recorded analog and tape. Tape literally had a certain number of tracks that you could do. Those big boards you see in the documentaries were literally direct feeds into a lane on a piece of track that you had to keep rewriting, and you could only rewrite a certain number of times before the fidelity went away. Yeah. So there were times like when they got 64 tracks, Michael Jackson was the first to do it with Quincy Jones. They were like, what do we do with all of, you know, they just start putting in like 4 tambourines and shit because they're like, why? Yeah, totally. Yeah, like individual hand claps and stuff. They're like, oh my God, this is incredible. But to more your point, so I mean, there was a point in time where it was kind of structured to what you were saying. Like, you couldn't do that many overdubs legitimately for the fidelity of tape, right? Okay. If you kept re-recording a part like 150 times, you're erasing and re-recording over tape. It's gonna lose some fidelity. It's what Rick Rubin talks about recently. He was like, I forget who he was talking to, but he was saying you leave a tape around long enough, and from the time you started the record to like if you record a record for a year and a half, it will literally sound different a year and a half later. The tape is the analog; it's chemical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a loss of fidelity. So, to your point though about chopping up and kind of, it's fun to give these things context because you now have infinite. To your point, you could. I've recorded the first Crown the Empire record that I did. I recorded this guy Joey Sturgis. Well, first full record. We did an EP with like one of my mentors growing up. But the first time where we were like, holy shit, we're going to a producer. Apparently they do all this stuff, like I'm thinking of Bob Rock and shit. I grew up on like some kind of monster documentary.
Fuck yeah.
Like maybe they'll take us to therapy. Maybe they'll take us to therapy and stuff. Like this is going to be incredible. The mad props to the dude. Like he's an incredible at what he does, but he was so much more of an engineer. So I show up, I'm some kid, I'm 18 and given like, they were telling me the money that's being spent. I'm flown to Michigan actually.
Nice.
For 2.5 months. And the dude is just like, so where are the songs? What are the finished tracks? I was like, okay, I don't know. So his whole thing, what you're kind of trying to get to your question is he would have me. He wouldn't record anyone else in the band. He would literally only record me playing. And I'm not in the band, right? I'm the songwriter, manager, creative director, or whatever. But he knew I wrote them. Okay. And so he was just like if I left the room and I'm like, yeah, he can play it. He would. If I left the room, he would stop tracking. What? I was smoking cigarettes then. But all to say, just to your point, he would go in and his whole thing was making his records sound perfect. Okay. Mm-hmm. There was this whole MySpace era of shit, and why I was referencing those bands that came before, and what made this scene really different was it was clinical. It's gross. I listen back and I'm like, this is horrible. There's no room. There's no. Because these bands couldn't play, they were literally formed online. I mean, there's no Metallica grinded out in a bedroom. Right. Even having the convo earlier, it was like Bob Seger. Mm-hmm. People think of him as like a solo act. It's like he had to convince 8 dudes that his ideas didn't suck to like go on stage before he was signed. Sure. There was this sense of like suck together, get better. Mm-hmm. Even Elvis, wasn't just like made. Right. Here's the best musicians. Frank Sinatra, it's debatable, but like people had to learn to play good enough in a room that somebody would say, hey, I want to capture what I heard here today. That did not exist at all come the internet. So when you listen to Metallica is rooted. That's why the context is so important of like when you say like a typical way, it's typical to the band. Like they're rooted in get in a room and suck. Foo Fighters, Dave Grohl talks about all the time. Mm-hmm. Get in a room and suck until you stop sucking, and you're playing off of each other. You write parts because you're going like, nah, and you're jamming the same song for 3 hours legitimately, and you'll just do this one thing because it becomes second nature, and they're like, hey, that was sick, that was it, that's the Chili Peppers, that's the whatever. Those bands will record a little more traditionally to what you're saying. You've got you got a guitar on the left, a guitar on the right, a bass down the middle, vocals down the middle, maybe some synths and stuff right here. It's all panning, right? Right. And then drums are everywhere. Right. I was with Slipknot in the studio not too long ago, and they had like $2 million worth of mics around his drum kit. Yeah. Holy shit. There's so many mics. Yeah. That East West Studios here. And so there's fucking 45 tracks just for the drums.
My favorite, funny you say that, 'cause my favorite behind the scenes video ever was it was when Jay Weinberg was doing the Unsainted tracking.
Oh, wow. Oh, dude, that might have been, I don't know if I filmed that.
Yeah,
I was there for that.
You might have been there. But like, because it starts off with Jim Root. There's like, it's the producer, I think it was Greg Fiddle, but they say, like, you ready? He's like, I'll be ready by the time he starts playing. And it's just the tracking of Weinberg. And it is a insanely intense, perfect take. But the funny part is how nonchalant he is before and after. Like, it's like, that was good. He's like, yeah.
Dude, yeah, Jay was a character. I mean, funny thing too is like on a typicality, if that's a word. Yeah. Of recording. I mean, I don't think I was in a band that recorded real drums until we just wanted to, because we had sold so many records that we were like, hey, screw it, like, let's go do it. You know? Everything was programmed.
Yeah.
So there's drum programs, MIDI drums that I would write.
Okay.
You know, I would write the drums and be like, can you play this? Is this real? I knew the general. I wanted it to whatever, but I would have to like consult the drummer and be like, you can do that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So as long as they got it, when you got on tour, he could play it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, was the idea.
Okay.
That was the hope. So
For let's say just a rhythm guitarist, right? So like, you know, sticking with something that I know. So let's say like Enter Sandman
sure.
Are they playing like da 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 da? Are they actually just looping it once and going, okay, you got it, just repeat that?
No.
Or they're actually just playing the whole song and they're recording the whole song organically, usually.
So it's kind of like I said to point blanket. No, that they're not cutting that and like looping it because you want the humanity in the performance.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Yep.
You get solid headphones, you can hear it, but yeah.
Okay.
So no.
So at least, and I know, like I said, I know there's always exceptions. There's probably bedroom artists and digital type artists that, yes, they do create 3 seconds and then they loop it. But to this day, the typical rock act, it is going to be a matter in some way, shape, or form of you go in that booth and record the track and he will do the whole track.
Yeah.
And then later they'll overdub, mix, whatever. But they generally try to perform the whole song at the time they're recording with maybe punching and things here and there.
Not the whole song. Rarely the whole song.
Okay.
Actually, like kind of legend. Yeah. It'll definitely be by verse because like even songs that are especially in rock, right? Your guitar tone is such a big part of it. They're not like clicking a pedal to change it for the chorus if it goes from soft to whatever.
Yeah.
They design those sounds. They spend so much. Smashing Pumpkins would be a good example. All over the place.
Yeah.
Sonically, Radiohead, right? So they'll hit like a tone, do that part. And yeah, you're layering it up, right?
Yep.
You go like, I love the rhythm guitar here. Third Eye Blind's a great example. Like Green Day with the amount of Green Day's whole thing since I want to say it was like Nimrod or something, but basically American Idiot, they cemented like acoustic guitars under everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every single part. You hear this clicking of the strumming. So like they're not playing. You need perfect strums to not hear the acoustic. You just want to feel it. It's like a tambourine player.
Sure.
It's like you're not really looking for imperfections there versus like Nirvana's guitar. You're looking for imperfections all over the place. A good example of somebody who was like legendary for the way he taked was Rivers Cuomo for the first Weezer record.
Okay.
He's notorious for he played his part. He just played the whole album. It's infamous. He sat in his room. He's doing exactly what I said people don't do. He was clicking pedals and he just played the album.
Incredible.
So that whole when you listen to that one side of the guitar is just playing. It's crazy.
It's my favorite story whenever an album comes out and they're like, we did it completely live, or they said this part of the thing was done in one take. It's what I really love about why I got into jazz and as an adult, because it is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I always wondered, like, okay, wait, this album is only 3 songs long or 5 songs long. Each one of them is 10 minutes long or whatever. And then you can buy the extended edition that has 25 different takes. And I'm like, well, why would I want that? Well, there's highlights and lowlights of every single one of those takes. Yeah. And like there's a number of times we went and saw Kamasi Washington a few years ago during the pandemic, and they fuck up. Like they just do. Like in live and recorded, there are these minor and major imperfections that add this life to it and just become part of the canon. There becomes definitive versions of these songs, which we're all getting anyway, right? Because there's 25 versions of Enter Sandman. We got the one they like the best.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it's there's macro trends in the music industry of the ebbs and flow of that you can see. Right?
Sure.
You get hip hop. Well, I mean, hip hop's the hardest example because the beats are never gonna. I mean, you do get a To Pimp a Butterfly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. In the midst of all of this musicality, you have some of it, but generally as a genre, I was instantly drawn to it. In like 2017, there was kind of like a shift. It was like Young Thug starting to come out, and like even dudes that people hate, like Lil Pump and stuff, and like all that. I don't listen to it, but I was like, damn, dude, this is grungy. The one thing that doesn't change is you don't have a band.
Yeah.
To talk about right before that, the bands that I'm making are these metal dudes being super angry. Like, why are you screaming? You know what I mean? People lost sight of that. They were screaming for a genre. You know what I mean? They were yelling because of a genre, not because they were talking about something that pissed them off. It was so you had this farce in this thing that felt guttural or whatever, and then you have this thing that feels super clinical, and you have a guy like Young Thug, and people are literally starting to share him because they're like, I don't know what he's saying. I can't understand him. Right. I was like, this is right then I was getting sort of my second education in music. I managed this other band and was kind of doing the same thing. And the guitarist, who I'm supposed to hang out with tomorrow, he's incredible. The producer and him that I paired the band I was working with, and then ended up signing another band that was sort of my gateway to them. Only other act I worked with. That producer, Drew Folk, is now like the number one songwriter going on 2 years running for the rock genre. Okay. So I was like, I just saw it early. I was like, oh shit. So they taught me Nirvana, they taught me Thrice, they taught me every context that I gave for the genre that I had no clue. I was like, this is what I've been doing for 5 years.
Oh, cool.
Under Oath 8 years before it, and then learning Nirvana. And he was just like, this was staying up. I'll I'm sorry, Mom, if you listen to this, but this was me being in LA for the first time, ripping chemical weed until like the highest that you can possibly get while taking half Adderalls in a studio. So we would talk. We would be done recording. That was all day. Then at night, the Adderall doesn't wear off, and we didn't do anything else. We didn't get it too crazy. So it was like midnight, and you're like, well, we're just gonna be awake. The sun would come up. You go, are you hungry? And we're like, yeah, let's go get some food. You're asleep at 9 p.m. You wake back up at 2 and do it all over. Those talks were completely influential to it's why I can listen to Rick Rubin's and Trent Reznor's and any of the guru-y types. And I actually, it was weird. It took me years to sort of vet this and be like, am I going to know can I guess half the shit in Rick Rubin's book before I read it? Right. But like, I started to relate to these people. Being friends with Post was a big part of that okay. I got to see kind of this implemented. But all to say, all that context was just when I heard the 2017 rap stuff, I was like, this is more punk rock than my band playing Warped Tour. Sure. I was like, this is so, it's jazzy. It's so imperfection based. It's so feeling based, just catching momentum on a track. And yes, the music was, you just didn't need a band, but right. Yeah, just on the imperfections thing, that's what the ebb and flow of it is. You come from all this precise clinical Katy Perry type of early 2010s. That's why hip hop overtook rock as the biggest genre. Rock has completely lost its fuck you-ness, its imperfections, its grossness. Yeah, and Metallica's not going to push it forward. They're 80,
not anymore. Yeah.
Like right. They did 50 years ago, 42 years ago. Like exactly. Kill 'Em All. Yeah. But that was our parents.
Right. It's a fascinating point you bring up about hip hop, because we go back and forth. We have a lot of conversations about hip hop, about our experience with it as kids, because we were around during, quote unquote, the golden age, and now it's something different. Yeah. And that's a hard transition for us to make. But it really got me thinking if these guys are making are building tracks in their bedroom, that is the garage. Right? That is the garage. Yeah. They have no classical training. So when they say a lot about Jay Dilla, when his production style, right? That there was not a metronome. Like, it was off, like by half steps here or half steps there. And that's exactly what made it so fucking cool. I got to believe the same thing's true for these guys that are starting with nothing. No musical training. They know what sounds cool as hell. They're doing it themselves.
Right. Yes.
And they said the same thing with
genuinely like, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, just the same thing with Kurt Cobain. Like, it was one of the Rick Beato episodes where he's saying, like, Kurt Cobain didn't understand the rule of fifths in music theory. He just knew it sounded cool. Right. And he happened upon it.
And to be honest, that's like a pretty common thing. Like, I stopped pursuing music as like from a playing standpoint when I met somebody who knew theory, but also understood why Kurt Cobain picked the way he picked his guitar. Okay. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, right? Sure.
Like, that was a huge thing. That was, again, like what I said, is like, if you're angry, play angry. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people miss that. And look, that's why things go through cycles, is like the tropes and the culture that what you guys are talking about is like music at a time where some sort of genre, some sort of thing pops out, it's a reflection of the culture, right? It's a reflection of your world becoming culture.
Sure.
Right? So it's like the hip hop thing, they were the way that the cycles go, though, where you're seeing this dip right now in hip hop and this respect for country, right? Is that they tend to hit on the same tropes. So you just get a little cliche after a while. You talk about the same thing, and again, it becomes a genre thing. It's just like superhero movies, you know. Iron Man is great.
It's great.
Iron Man is an indisputably awesome film. Right? It's just from top to bottom. Yeah. There was no fix it in post. It was $80 million budget, and they had to know every single shot. So there's a lot of care. There's a lot of precision. After a while, it becomes a genre. You just go, well, bing, bang, boom, guy saves girl. Right. Now it's whatever, girls save girls, and you become political, and it becomes all these things. And you end up just copying the form rather than like taking from the seed of the inspiration that started the thing in the first place, which is like, I want to make the most kick-ass superhero movie. It's like people ripping off Hitchcock. It's happened forever. It becomes tropey, and you lose that genesis of just like, it's always fuck you. It's always punk.
That's rock and roll. Absolutely.
Elvis is punk. Like like every single the best cultural shifts are all. I'm like a punk at like an ethos level. Sure. It's not a genre.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which that confuses me about then. I mean, this is kind of a side tangent about country's popularity right now, because they are in a 10, 15 year like plateau of the same shit over and over. And I
I would argue 30 to 40 year plateau.
Right. Yeah. But as far as this true, like I was just
Garth
thinking,
Brooks has entered the chat.
Seriously.
Like Beyonce wearing a cowboy hat to an award show and then dropping a quote unquote country album. That's not a country album. When nobody in the genre wears cowboy hats anymore, that's actually an antiquated thing. It's a different thing now.
Yeah.
How that, so I don't know. I don't know if there's a point here, but it's just it boggles my mind that continues to be sort of on not only like in the mainstream, but on the rise seemingly, when it seems from our perspective to have reached a level where what more can you do with it? Seems like copy and paste now.
Country music feels like parody right now.
Yeah,
popular because we are. I mean, we talked about it in earlier episodes. Like I'm a huge like Sturgill Simpson, Jason Isbell, like Tyler Childers. We know the good country is out there, and Sturgill Simpson especially. You talk about like a punk ethos and a punk mindset. You know, that's a guy who just gives zero fucks, and he'll do a bluegrass album and then an industrial album. It's out there, but yet it seems to continue to get ignored in favor of this beyond cookie cutter, like almost like it's a joke.
Yeah. I mean, so the rise of popular music is like a game in itself. You know what I mean? There are certain players that are good to do it, but I would say this. I mean, like the genesis of like any real cultural shifting art, right? Like Beyonce doing that, where she's really going to bring like hordes of people to country. Post is doing a country album. Everyone's been begging for it. Like just generally like the rise of the country thing, but almost also any genre. And the Metallica is a perfect example. I mean, when we pull in Metallica and Hitchcock here, okay, I'll make these make sense. Is when Metallica started, they were literally like, we just wanted to play faster than everyone.
Right.
His whole thing was playing fast. So it's just a feeling, right?
Yeah, sure.
Genres get made by the people after the fact. And yes, you can't probably parallel Beyonce so much there, but there's definitely, like you said, Sturgill Simpson, Coulter Wall.
Yeah.
You know, there's this other kid. I mean, even like Johnny Cash's son and stuff. There's this other kid who's got a great voice. They are chasing a feeling. You can tell. You can tell when someone is doing that. You can listen if you've done it long enough. I can hear somebody for legitimately 2 seconds. Like the way I look for music is I will browse through, skip to 30 seconds, and listen for 3 seconds. Next song. You can tell instantly. You can just tell when someone's trying to recreate a feeling. Hitchcock said it the same way. He was when he wanted to make Psycho, he literally, him and his writer said, we want to make the scariest movie that anyone's ever made. So yes, genre-wise afterwards, the story, the plot, the which you can take as like the song structure and the genre, right? the plot of the movie is the song structure of a song. Nobody could have said, hey, Psycho did so well, so what you should do is kill your main character halfway through the first act. Right. That's what a lot of people get. That's what a lot of people get wrong, is they look at this shit and they copy the plot and they copy the genre and they go, yeah, it's the same thing, right? And it's like, no. It's him and his friends sitting around saying, we're going to make the scariest thing you've ever seen in your entire life. That's what that is. That's what artists are. That's where you get Tyler, the Creator, makes a country album. I'm here for it. Sure. You know what I mean? Right. I don't care. It's not a genre. I hate 90% of country. I love some folky. I've listened to Willie Nelson's entire discography looking for some joints, Right. And, so the rise of it, the popular side, I mean, that's a whole... I don't...
There's a whole political aspect of...
For sure.
Yeah. No, but
it's less...
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
It makes sense because like in a professional context, just to make the analogy for us and maybe a lot of our viewers, like when you work somewhere, you notice someone, maybe they're in engineering, maybe they're in purchasing, maybe they're in whatever, but it's like, let's say his name's Tom. It's like, you could put Tom in any department. He's going to excel. Yeah. Right. The fact that he happens to be in purchasing, I think it's the same thing with artists. It's like either you have the fire or you don't. And the genre is almost irrelevant.
It's imagine this too. It's imagine you're your own boss though. You're figuring out what department you want to be in, and you have to genuinely have the impetus to go like, dude, I want to learn engineering, and hopefully, this is why the best artist in the world, we're gonna find his paintings in his attic after he dies. It's like there is an element of given the opportunity, and that's not to say this isn't the most democratized time we've ever lived in, but the other element of it is it's a kind of a whole discourse on like how artists make a living, and can that ties into it to a degree. It's a freedom of expression thing. Hitchcock was not wondering about his house payments when he was able to dive in and make Psycho. Right. And we're going to actually probably in the future we're doing a whole spiel on that, and we'll circle back to that. But before we get off the production thing, I did want to ask you, just and you don't have to put too much thought into it, but what you think are the best produced albums, A, from a technical standpoint, and B, from a creative standpoint, where you think the producer did the best job of pulling the best album out of that band? What are two examples of you think incredible production? Yeah. Okay, all right, I will say from everything that we've talked about context-wise, Yeezus by Kanye West is up there. Okay. That is the coolest, just most fuck you industrial record ever. It didn't make any sense. It still doesn't really make sense.
That was the one where he just got all his...
that's Beautiful Twisted.
That's Beautiful Twisted.
But no, it's funny you say that because earlier when you were talking, I was going to say, when you're talking about genre shifting and Post Malone making country or whatever, I'm like, I remember when Yeezus came out, the review, I think it was Rolling Stone, someone did a review that said the best Nine Inch Nails album this year was released by Kanye West. Okay. Because he made an incredible industrial album.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is probably, it's just like you can tell, and I love the ethos of like producer artists like that. So Trent Reznor would probably be up there too. Radiohead definitely does a lot of Kid A for me is like
same here,
but it's man, that is tough. I really want to give it some thought. Give me one.
Yeah, sure. Because I know historically, like Steely Dan, and like there's all these like
I was going to say Zeppelin,
Pet Sounds,
right. Like if you're
keep this in mind. Sorry to cut you up, but like Zeppelin on it, man. You know what my favorite tidbit ever about them is? You realize Zeppelin 1, 2, 3, Physical Graffiti, and 4 were released in like a 6-year span.
I know, it's fucked up.
That's insane, dude. That's they didn't really shit. They made like one other album in the 80s that nobody remembers, and like those Zeppelin as we know it, arena stadium, the biggest band in the world, was like 5 years because they were all studio musicians, the Yardbirds and all that with Jimmy Page, and they were all. So I mean, that one's so tough. Oh, Nevermind, Nirvana. I think it's genuinely. Oh, actually. Probably one of my favorite from a production standpoint too, talking particularly about the producer bringing something out, is Ross Robinson doing the first Slipknot record. Okay. That is
Iowa.
Talk about just like, oh man, just like bringing like hate. I mean, he literally had like, that's their thing, which is cool. It's an expression of something. So hopefully people don't do it in their lives. You can get it out through that, especially them.
Right.
But I mean, he was in the room. You can hear pops of the mic from him smacking himself in the head till he's bleeding, screaming the words and shit. I mean, like his actual spitting up blood in the record. That's dope, you know. Like that's some Dolly ass, like
for
Van Gogh cut off my ears.
Yeah,
shit.
right.
Yeah, like
Awesome.
Can I take a quick break? By the way, I gotta pee.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, no problem.
1 sec. I'll be 2 seconds.
Yeah. Wow, it's going great. 48 minutes in.
Yeah, I've gotten in basically the questions I had in mind.
Okay.
So anything else that's scripted?
Yeah, I want to get into the video production part of it. I think that's this is a good place to transition.
Yep.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
But yeah, I don't even know. Man, I'm gonna have to text you guys.
That's fine.
You can put on the.
No, I know it's one of those questions
that
that's like you can come up with an answer and later you're taking a shit or a shower or something. It's like, oh fuck, how did I forget that album?
100%. 100%. You know what? It's funny too because like I'm just such a I'm such a performer. Like I'm such a vocal minded person.
Okay.
I just really believe in like the take of because it's funny I say that I listen to mostly instrumental shit now, but still it's that one guy behind the ethos of it. You know, it's just you connect to the person. The guitarist plays off of what the singer's going to talk about. Maybe they inspire like chords that they're like, this is so sad. I want to, but you're still gonna like contextualize a sad set of chords into something personal, like Elton John's lyricist. It's like Elton can play those notes, but he's gonna find some way to make it about the Rocket Man or whatever.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, like even it's that production question. I'm just like, man, even like Doja Cat's new record is like to me just
we like that
incredible.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Yeah,
return to 90s hip hop shit. But
for sure,
I'll think on that one.
All right,
absolutely. So the one thing we kind of haven't talked about is like what you're doing now, which is video production, right? Which we've done an episode on our favorite music videos, and
just recently,
and they were kind of all over the place, and for a lot of different reasons. I think individually we tried to choose a sort of a wide range, but now I'm guessing the way you're talking about the way you see things beforehand. Yeah, were you seeing visuals for every band you played in ahead of time, or
yeah. Especially songwriting.
Okay.
It was funny. The way I would write was I would picture them on stage, and I didn't know.
Okay.
Being more in the visual world now, I didn't know that some directors that are my friends, this is getting more popular from like TikTok and shit, but people don't have like an inner monologue, or people don't have like they don't see pictures. Right. That's like just like different. Oh, throwing up balloons. Inner monologues. That's pretty tight. So I just that combos come up more, and I thought about that recently. Was like, I used to always picture the band on stage. I would just think of how they moved and how they looked, and this part will be really cool because I'm like, and it was again a byproduct of not knowing theory. Was I would have to close my eyes.
Sure.
I wrote like the most successful I ever was with writing because I needed someone was actually the guitarist of the Crown the Empire. He has like a speech impediment, like beyond a stutter.
Okay.
It's just like he'll be like, hey dude, can you, and then you're about like 14 seconds of like you can either guess what he's gonna say,
sure, or
you can just kind of like let it play out.
Right.
So here's the interesting thing though. I love he's like my brother. We would talk about this in interviews. Was he him doing that, I would be working on a song and I'm in my zen or whatever. I'm trying not to get disturbed. Anyone else comes in, they're like, hey, I'm like, hold on, I'm not done with the fucking, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I'm not done with it. I don't know theory. Give me 15 minutes. Right. So he would say something and he'd go, hey, dude, that thing, and he gets stuck. And instead of saying a bunch of shit to me, he would just make me go, what's wrong with this part? And I was just,
yeah,
so like literally his speech impediment was like kind of this weird universal alchemy of like, I got the perfect guy that was like, look at that thing. I would do 5 little things, sit back. He's still saying his words and I click play and he'd listen. He'd go, okay, no, that fixed it. No, that's cool. So
that's really cool.
Yeah.
So then how does it work? How does it work the other way then? So now you're coming from it where you're not around for the production of the music, I'm guessing. You're not, right?
Yeah.
Like you are coming as a total outsider. I'm guessing they have a vision when they come to you now. Yeah. I'm fascinated by the whole thing. The decision of what jobs to take and what jobs not to take. The whole, like, I have an amazing vision for this. Like, I'm not crazy about the song, but what the video could add to the song. Do you know what I mean? That must be, that's just a crazy position to be in when you're not sort of working from the inside out, you're going the outside in. What's that been like?
And especially coming from what I did, especially coming from like, music where by the time I got to spend years with Post Malone, just as his friend, that was the absolute upper echelon, right? So I kind of like saw the end of the road. I was sort of like, all right, I get it now. I see how you guys do your business. I do whatever. This is still ongoing for me. So my answer in 6 months will be different. My answer 6 months ago was definitely different. But yeah, no. So, I mean, the process of, you nailed it, right? You get these commissioners from labels or you get like managers, anyone who's sometimes directly to the artist, but anybody who's going to come to you and say, I have this much money. And then you get in. That's a start, right? Is the budget? Is the budget doable? For this thing, you know? But creatively, that really does. I have so many people who do the opposite, right? They'll come with the creative. I'm just like, listen, tell me the money. I'm not like trying to see what I'm gonna make. I'm trying to see literally the sandbox.
Yeah, sure.
You want an airplane? Like, airplanes cost X amount. Let me just go look up an airplane. So it's really that sandbox is what you start with, and you just go, okay, cool, and you pick up quick hand on it, right? I go, all right, I can get this. This is the type of crew we're gonna have. This is the type of production. But like as soon as right after that, obviously, yes, creative. So you're stuck a lot. To your point, you are stuck a lot with everything I was talking about with Hitchcock. Imagine if you said, write Psycho. Here's the music for it. Right. Your pace for the entire thing is completely different. Sure. Especially you write Psycho for Katy Perry Teenage Dream. Cool. That sounds dope, right? Actually, there's like a cool juxtaposition there. You're juxtaposed. Yeah. So you don't really get to like be. You get some that are sort of almost like neutral ideas that you might keep and sort of reprise, right? Just general like performance setups that you've wanted to do. Maybe it's just more lighting based. Maybe it's more, and you just kind of, maybe it's just more of for a genre. You have pop or whatever. You can keep those in the back, but and maybe just recycle or treatment, which sometimes is great. But generally, you're stuck with the music. You have to find your way into that to see if it's a feeling that you want to evoke. If you've got to feel out, is the artist cool? Will they want to do something like, hey, your super pop tune? I've written on a shit very similar to Katy Perry and been like, what if your super bubbly pop tune is really about you like murdering your boyfriend and smiling and shit, whatever, like trying to add a little bit of film to it. But so you get stuck with that song, you get stuck with that feeling, and then generally, yes, they will have some sort of. Every musician is just an Oscar winner untapped, so they have all of their. It's genuinely like my real beyond the process. My feeling about it is it's the most frustrating section of film production to be in by far. Really, if from a dude, I mean it's. Like I said, when the cool part of leading into this conversation is the context of the musicality of capturing a feeling about being imperfect, about think about how much that takes. Like we're saying, like Rick Rubin's not a deep guy, whether you think he's right or wrong, he's considered. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, he is.
He's tried, he's failed, he's humility. There's ups, there's down. Nah, man, you get these fragile humans who are off of TikTok who are we all can listen and go, you have genuinely copy and pasted this genre at the right time. Your voice might be unique. You might look very nice. You are the perfect age demographic. Like, we're in a world where like the vloggers Jake and Logan Paul make music,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, if I was commissioned to write that, there's not a lot of. There's Oppenheimer, and then there's Jake and Logan Paul. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's not a lot.
Right.
I am not going to make the Hitchcock analogy for what they did. There's no their impetus. The feeling behind 90% of the music that I get to write on it. The when I talk about like the genesis of writing a song is I want to be cool. I want to look cool. So you're just feeding neuroses. You're feeding ego.
Sure.
It's very rare that you get synced up. And you know, the artists that you loved, whoever you guys mentioned that you saw live, I was like, oh, I don't know that name. Yeah, I bet they don't have $500,000 for a music video. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right.
Yeah. So the coolest artists, you generally, you don't get to. It's very tough to get into that circle.
So how did you? So you're here though. You're here.
Yeah.
Right. And the creative side. I know this from working essentially a job in a cubicle for my whole life, but always having the creative impetus always just bubbling under the surface in everything I do, and just trying to weasel it in to every single thing I'm asked to do. It can be super frustrating. So where do you see it going from here? Like, do you see yourself being able to grow and find a way to express your sort of...
Oh, yeah. So the interesting part for me though was what this became for me, right? I started out too about 6 years ago. I was sort of like between two worlds, right? I was working I had my like only job at a label. I was like, I needed to like try to work with other people and stuff instead of being like solopreneur on whatever. I was like, let me just go get like a job. So I worked at this small indie label. And I mean, even right before that, I had started working with a friend, filming a lot of like behind the scenes-y kind of stuff, right? Okay. It was just serendipitous that my friend hit me up. She goes, hey, do you have a camera? And a friend had just given me one 2 weeks before that.
Okay.
I was like, I actually do have one of those. Yeah. So I started into that, and then worked at the label doing film stuff. And so I started to notice, it was about 3 years ago, that girl that initially gave me that job started dating this guy who's what's called a commissioner at a label. So they're the ones that send out, hey, we want a music video. This is the premise. This is the money, right? He hit me up and he's like, dude, you should direct. And I was like, I don't know, man. I didn't go to school. I didn't like whatever. Yeah. What do you mean? But he goes, no. You can direct. You know, I'm not asking you to do X, Y, or Z. You could direct though. Give it a shot. And I promise I'll get back to where do I go from here. Right. But so I got linked into working with a producer who was, I would say, more in the film world. That there's a line between you're working in music, filming stuff, and then you're working with people who, and so all of a sudden I had all of these aspirations. The coolest thing was coming from music. I had 6 people, including the band members themselves, for every record that I ever made. It was me, a producer, 3 dudes who actually wanted to show up to the studio. Drummer would fly in and fly out to maybe record his parts that we would replace later, and like an occasional cellist or something that we got as like a one-day thing, right? Mastering engineer I never met with. Mixer, we just sent it off. Label guys would just call us maybe once, and that was it. I get on my first film set, and there are 35 people. I didn't even meet all of them that day, and I was like, oh, this is more than every label's employees that I've ever worked with.
Wow.
On my set for this one day. So I was like, this collaboration's crazy. So all to say, the distinction I'm making is like, there's the avenue of music videos, and then the film world coming to the music industry to service them. Mm-hmm. There's zero respect in the music industry for that service.
Excellent.
They do not understand it. They don't know anything about it, just like I didn't. It's not even harm or foul. It's the commissioners try their best to communicate it, but they have bosses and they are in a ladder of people who all that they make money on is what they make money on, right? There's very little profit sharing on the YouTube royalties. So you hope that you market an artist and that it reflects in the streaming and the revenue streams that they own. But now everywhere they look, they go, why would I spend that much? This kid's blowing up on TikTok. They don't need a $500,000 music video at all.
Right.
5 artists need a $500,000 music video, and those are shelled up by the same production companies, same directors. So for me, I looked at it, I got to, it was like my film school, doing it the last couple of years was like, oh, let me learn, let me understand story. Like, hey, how the hell do I take from, like, I had ideas for music videos, I saw bands and what they were doing. What the hell how do you come up with the idea of what an actor is going to do?
Right.
What does that even mean?
Okay.
So that's where the shift in my life has been the last 2 years, is getting out of the music video thing. Would be awesome for a song that I love, that I'm like obsessed with, that I just think is captures a mood, that I instantly see stuff, that it has a feelings. Doing it as a job, I'm totally down to service people. I love to help like an artist, as long as the fees are there. It was film school was, hey, I'll do it for free. Now it's like, no, I can do this.
Right. You're getting a
for
quality product at the end of it. Right. Yeah.
And it's for them. I don't have to find necessarily my whole heart and soul in it. I just have to like enough to understand their heart and soul and service it. I say I would start at like a meter of 0 and I go, cool. And so I used to go a meter of 100 and see how much the artist was going to take away from me.
Okay.
It was very half glass full.
Yeah.
Now I'm very half glass empty, where I'm like, how much can I get in? Maybe I do a camera move I've been wanting to try, or I get to work with a new guy I've been wanting to work with, or try some lighting setup. Like, make the most of it. That's the reality of the music industry at a large right now. And
if there was a video, famous or maybe not quite famous, that you wish you could have done, or that you would redo if given the chance, based on the song and your vision for it.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, songs that I would love to, because redoing a video, I don't know. I mean, it would be fun to homage something that's like nostalgic to me.
Yeah, exactly. There could be something where it's like, man, I wish I could have had control over that one, because I would have done this and would have been so much cooler maybe than how it turned out. Or
yeah, I mean that happens all the time, where I'm like, oh, that's
poor choice.
You guys missed a couple of beats there. Yeah. But no, I mean, I would say like something for Radiohead would be like incredible to work on. Right? I could go back and just listen to a Radiohead song and make something totally new. I might do that. That'd be
super fun.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Which one? Daydreaming. Paul Thomas Anderson directed.
Yeah.
And
that's incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah. That's he's just walking through the different. Yeah. Okay.
The doors change.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's funny, like an insight into that is the cost of that. It's so simple, right? So I don't even think the camera moves really. It's just on sticks. It moves a little. But yeah, the cost of having all those locations is insane.
Is it really?
It's absolutely.
God,
oh man,
I would never think that.
We could do a whole separate episode on just film production costs, man. I mean, when you watch something, realize that if you ever see a camera move where it's smooth, right? I'll try my best to move my laptop.
Yeah.
See, I'm moving it closer to me.
Yeah.
Well, that was easy with a laptop. When I'm doing that with a 40-pound camera that's got like 3 Teradeks on it, a focus motor, it's got a zoom motor, an iris motor, a fucking lens that's $120,000 just for that one lens.
Yeah.
It's got 2 monitors on it, one for the AC. It's got all the shit coming off of it. When I want to move that thing, just that move that I made, you would go like, okay, like I've heard of a dolly, right?
Sure.
Cool. Throw it in a dolly. Well, you get a dolly, you need the track that goes underneath the dolly. Those are 8-foot long poles, right? You need the tripods that the camera stands on the dolly with. That's, negligible, but you need those 8-foot poles. They're not that expensive either. That whole dolly rig is probably like $200. And you're like, oh, that's not too bad. Well, you need a driver to go pick it up the day before your shoot. Okay? He has to pick it up in something. He has to pick it up in a U-Haul. You have to pay him for the pickup the day of the shoot and the drop off the day after. So that's for a PA. It's called a PA driver. That's $750 right there. Cost of the truck is like $500. So just to move the camera 2 inches towards the person is now it's $1,500, and who's moving the camera on the day? What is all? Who's bringing the
right? He's got to be union,
Right.
Right.
Don't even know.
I know. I know. And then I was thinking too, like permitting, right? Like when you talk about different locations,
sure,
like if there's 10 locations, that's 10 places. You got to get a film permit.
Yeah.
You'd think so. Yeah. No, and for sure, that's the right way to do it. Permits. I mean, it's endless, man. Like it's just, but it's cool because that's the challenge of it. And you know, tech is getting. I don't know if you guys heard of the movie The Creator. Came out like last year.
I don't think so.
So the guy. Yeah, so Gareth Edwards, who made like Rogue One, and he made like one of the Godzillas or something.
Okay.
But Rogue One, everyone's
Awesome.
like, "Hey, you're cool."
Yeah.
Great movie, right?
Yeah.
He started at ILM doing VFX, and this was his. He literally went to the studio and was like, "Look, I was just in Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore, or somewhere else for right before COVID." He's like, "I just went to all these places. I took this new camera that you can buy at Best Buy, right?" Called a Sony FX3 with a gimbal that's like a stabilizer. So what I was talking about, a smooth camera. It can work. You can get a small one that a single dude can use without needing these other crazy things to support the weight. It's just like a guy. It's what you see. Look at the like behind the scenes of like pretty much anything nowadays.
Yeah.
There's some dude with like you'll see this little like robot stick that they're running with. He just took the camera, really nice lenses because he's Gareth Edwards, he could get them. And I think like one of his one guy to pull focus for him went out to Thailand, shot all this stuff. He just shot like people in rice paddy fields, boats. He shot the mountain ranges, all this. Since he works at ILM and VFX, he CGI'd in robots and nuclear, all this stuff. And he's like, "This is what I want to do. I want to make Blade Runner with Apocalypse Now."
Okay.
See what I mean? But I'm going to shoot it the way that I just told you. I'm going to shoot it with Best Buy cameras.
Okay.
And he goes, because it doesn't matter. The science and technology, we've caught up a lot. There are certain things that do. Glass is glass. Like lenses aren't getting any cheaper. But I got these tools. So don't, my idea, you read it, studios, and you see it as $200 million. I'm telling you I'm going to make this movie for $80 million.
Okay.
And they were like, all right. And so he did it. So I was like, to bring that in, it's just like, yeah, the shit's crazy. Film is its whole thing, but there's ways to, again, at the end of the day, you're just trying to get a feeling across. I don't need to move the camera if I don't need to move the camera.
Right.
Just do it on sticks, get the feeling.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we figured all that stuff out with podcast. we're doing all this for nothing just because we like it. There's we're always tipping on the edge of like, do I buy the next cool thing? Like our lighting's not great, but does it really fucking matter? Is there any return on investment here? And the answer is always no.
Yeah.
But also there's pride and all that kind of stuff, right?
There's the feeling part. Yeah, there's totally right. There's like, for me right now where I'm at is like, creating my own stuff. I'm finally getting the music part out of it from the music video, making my own stuff again, making my own music, setting my own tone and tempo. But I know I'm not great at story. Story is, I've tried so hard. I've spent 2 years trying to become the type of guy who could write the 7 Deadly Sins murderer and write 7,
Yeah, sure. Right.
I want that little gem, but it's incredibly hard. I think people get 1 or 2 of those in their lifetime, right? But the mood and tone and the feeling of 7, that is shit I can do. So I'm in always the same boat where I'm like, what's the cheapest way and the least amount of shit I can get to just make. I just want to film some dude in a wet leather trench coat at the end of the hall, about looking like he's going to solve a crime. I don't know what it is, but I'll write a little voiceover on it, and try to honestly attract a writer or attract a DP or attract an actor or somebody who goes like, I have this idea. I have something I can bring to you. You don't have to do it all. You captured that mood, that feeling, that tone. That's where I'm at with things.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, man.
Well, dude, we appreciate the conversation, man. This has been, yeah, it's a lot for me to digest for sure. But
it's awesome though.
God, I wish you taught.
I'm sorry to shatter.
No, not at all. I think we had suspicions. Right? And we hold musicians up on a pedestal to a certain extent, but we also know that you're right. These are just people that have to go in and do their job every day, and it's infinitely more complex than we ever get to see.
Yeah.
And it needs to be. And
everyone has a voice, man. That's the one the least barrier to entry is in music.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, yes, I'm using a generality of I'm sorry to the mute audience out there, but like for the most part,
Sure.
most people have two legs and a voice. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a lot less. I mean, even buying, it's kind of like when you hear soccer is the biggest sport in the world. It's because all you need is a ball.
We were just talking about
You
that
don't
the
need
other day. Yep.
Hockey's not that popular. Painting is you need oil, canvas, and you probably need a little bit of technique. And you know, music, film, you need a camera, you need gear, you need all this. The barrier to entries are much higher. Music is very democratized. It's there's a reason. Yeah, everyone has a voice, so it's that's beautiful about it. But I think people just get too in there.
Yeah.
Get a little too egotistical for me.
Sure. I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, again, appreciate it. Anything that the 3 people that watch this show,
Hey,
you want them to go check out that you're doing right now?
We can plug for you.
dude, hell yeah. No, we I mean, check out stay with the work. I have a TikTok now. Pretty much everything is like BK Barone.
Okay.
Socials, Instagram, and all that. I'm doing just gonna be making short films, and
Awesome.
look out for I have one musician I still work with. Check out Black Swan.
Black Swan, will do. Okay.
He is.
We'll link into it.
But yeah, appreciate it, guys. This was awesome.
This was awesome, man. Really do appreciate it.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, that wraps it up for this episode.
That's right.
Yeah. If you haven't already, like, follow, subscribe,
Smash stuff.
do all that stuff, right? We want to have these kind of conversations with as many people as possible. We'd love to hear if you appreciate interviews, you want to see more, hear more, please let us know. Yeah. And so I guess, and remember, we have a audio show once a week, video show once a week. So that's right. And video shows currently only on YouTube. So check us out over there if you haven't already. And until next time.
Awesome.
See ya.
Yep.